Hey, I'm Break the Rank, and in case you haven't seen, TFT dropped some huge news today. So, Mortdog actually dropped on his community Discord this morning that there would be some big item changes coming in 14.5, which is not the patch coming out this week, but in 2 weeks from now. And he said that these item changes are going to be related to some bigger system change that's coming in set 15. I have no idea what that might be, but if you guys have any ideas, drop that in the comments. He specifically said that there's going to be a big change to a core system, which I imagine will be like sticking around for more than one set, but I'm not sure. But should be really cool to have some interesting things coming out in future sets. But as for right now, he teased that there would be these big item changes coming in 14.5, which is now live on the PBE as of the time this video is coming out. And they actually posted something on TFT Twitter. So they have this whole news post here going through everything, but I went ahead and created some visuals just to go through and sort of examine what I think these changes are going to cause on the meta, how things will change, if any of these items seem like they'll be like really good or kind of mid. But essentially what happened is they changed a few of the core item recipes. So there's going to be a few new core items. They moved some items to artifacts, but they also just got rid of some items completely, made some other changes. But yeah, let's get into it. So the very first item that is getting changed is the redemption to the Spirit Visage. And this is an interesting one. So essentially, the redemption has always been this sort of selfless sharing item that you put on somewhere in your front line, but not necessarily on your main tank, just because it already spreads its ability equally to all of the units in those adjacent tiles. And what it would do, or what it does currently, is heal them and give some durability to all of those units within that like one adjacent tile, and every 5 seconds or so. And what they aimed to do with this change, or at least what they said in the blog, was make this more of a selfish item where you put it on your main tank, and then that main tank just gets like a bunch of healing and can tank harder. So they just want like something where you can have like that main tank take a lot harder in every fight. And I think that this is a pretty successful design for this. Like I think this should go over well. You do technically lose a little bit of the healing. If you divided like 15 by 5, it's 3% instead of 2.5, but you're getting it earlier on in the fight. So you're getting it from like that first second of the fight. You're already starting to heal every single second. And then you're also getting that durability right from the start of the fight as well. I don't think Redemption does that currently. I could be wrong on that though. But either way, I think, yeah, this is just like a good thing to have on like main tanks, especially like bruisers right now. I think it should be pretty strong overall. Or it'll at least be like a very good option over like what Redemption was currently, which was more of like a supportish item. And alongside this change, they're getting rid of the artifact version of Spirit Visage, which was Anima Visage. And all that had was like a bit more stats, more health, more durability, or more resistance and more healing. But now that this is in the game, it does seem kind of redundant to have both of those. So I don't think anybody's really going to miss Anima Visage. But yeah, that'll be gone. And I think they are going to be putting in like another artifact, but we'll get to that later. So the second change, this is a pretty big one. This is like completely new effect here. So we have them getting rid of Runaans and replacing it with the Kraken's Fury. And I think this is overall positive. I think like Runaans has always been like a super niche item. There's usually like 1, maybe 2 units a set that actually like it. And even then, like on those units, it's not generally like that amazing. Like last set 13, we had Ezreal where it would proc off his autos, so it would do a bit more damage. The current set, we have like Vayne and Senna, who either have like really high attack speed or really high attack damage, and those bolts do like a bit more. But on most units, all this is really doing is sending out 2 bolts that are like tickling other units on the comp, feeding them mana, but never really killing anything. And yeah, you're almost like never like excited to build a Runaans on most units. So I think that this is overall like a positive change, like moving away from this. What they're replacing it with, you'll see, is the Kraken's Fury. I just took an image of the Kraken Slayer from League because I think that's probably the image they'll use for this. It gives a little bit more base attack damage, but the effect is like completely different. Attacks grant scaling attack damage, 3% currently for each auto attack. So basically what this does is like you have a unit that's auto attacking a bunch. Towards the end, by the end of the fight, they've just stacked up a bunch of AD and they can start blowing things up. So this will really be, I think, effective in like stall comps, things where you have a Guinsoo, I don't know, Guinsoo's getting changed too, or like some other attack speed item on like a big carry. And then you also have this, so they just stack up a bunch of AD, and then imagine like a Philios, he throws like that big bomb into like a clump of units during a fight. Like you'll just have that do like a big like nuke during the fight and kill a bunch of units. So I think this could be a really interesting item. It'll be good on like some niche units. I don't know if it'll be like something that you build on everybody. Like obviously you don't really want this on a Xayah because they're not auto attacking that much generally. But I think it's a cool design space. And you see that, oh, they also got rid of category 5 because there's no more Runaan, so obviously you're not going to have that anymore. And I think that's totally fine. I don't think anybody like cared too much about that. Moving on, the next one is Statikk Shiv. So this is an interesting change. They're essentially getting rid of like that little like sparking effect on Statikk Shiv, where every 3 attacks you would hit 4 enemies for like some flat magic damage. And it would spread that shred to like random enemies on the enemy team. So you could randomly like get shred on like their backline, and you could sort of bypass frontline with that. And they're changing it into Void Staff, which you're still gonna get that shred, and it actually gives a bit more AP. So you're happier putting this on like your main carry, like a big like a big AoE AP carry, and then just having them like something like Brand, like they cast, he blows up, hits like a bunch of units, and they're all shredded now. And yeah, I think it's totally fine. You're more happy now putting this on a carry just because it gives more damage, and it gives a little bit less attack speed. So you're missing out on those things like there was like set 10 TF that really wanted like both attack speed and AP, and so you would like throw shivs on him just because he'd be like spreading those little sparks all over the place and like doing a lot of damage with that. But I think you're like generally happy putting this on like more like AoE units now. Like you could even put it on like your secondary AP carry, like in the Brand Ziggs. Like say you put this on Ziggs, he throws like his AoE bomb, he shreds a bunch of people, and then your main carry is like hitting all the shredded units now. So I think this will be like pretty strong. It's more consistent for sure. And they are actually doing something new with Statikk Shiv, and they changed it into an artifact. So we'll see that a little bit later as well. And here is Guinsoo's. I think this will be probably like the most controversial change, just because people love Guinsoo's. Like what it does currently, it essentially lets you get a bunch of stacking attack speed on one unit. It looks like super cool. You get like this hyper carry who's attacking super fast by the end of the fight. And people kind of love that power fantasy of just being able to have that like one big hyper carry. I think it'll be like a lot less of that now. So what they did, instead of the attacks granting 5% stacking attack speed, you just get attack speed every second. So it doesn't scale off the attacks anymore, which means that like it doesn't have like that infinite scaling anymore of like you're just attacking faster and faster and faster. You are going to be attacking faster, but there's kind of like a virtual cap on it now, because you can technically only get as much attack speed as there is time in the fight. And usually, you know, those fights are going to be over in like 20, maybe 30 seconds sometimes. But yeah, I think this item will probably be a lot worse on a lot of units now, and I don't think you'll see like people doing like double Guinsoo's on anything. Like you would see like double Guinsoo's TF, maybe double Guinsoo's Aphelios, but not as much, and like double Guinsoo's like Zeri, that sort of thing. And you would see people just like stacking those Guinsoo's to get like the attack speed like really ramping up really fast. Now you don't really get that multiplicative value off of it. It's just like flat. So you'll probably still see like a single Guinsoo's on a lot of these units. Like those, I think they'll still like it just because it's going to be like kind of your default attack speed item. Maybe you can like swap it out for like QSS more readily now, but you definitely won't see people stacking it. You won't see people like as eager to build this item, I think, anymore. And it should be like less contested and maybe just less good. But yeah, we'll see how that turns out. And I think there's also another artifact coming out related to this that should be interesting. One thing that I also think is the augment anger issues is still in the game. As far as I know, I didn't see anything about them removing it. I feel like this makes anger issues a lot worse, but I guess we'll see. Maybe they'll make some changes to anger issues. Maybe they'll just like remove it as well, just because I don't think you really want to use play anger issues anymore with this change to Guinsoo's, just because you don't have that like infinite scaling anymore. And here's another big one. So Sterak is getting changed. I think the current Sterak has always been like a very like mid item. There are certain sets, like this last set, there were a lot of good users for it, and it also had like an augment associated where you were like happy to build it on like these like frontline bruisers. They would like get in there, tank a lot, gain some extra HP, or you could like sometimes combo with the artifact that would, the suspicious trenchcoat that would like split, and then you get like a bunch of more effective HP on the board. But if there aren't many bruisers in the set, like the current set, or if it doesn't have like those great interactions, then you're not nearly as happy to build it. Like this set, like this is probably one of like the least built items, I would imagine, just because it's not that great on like any unit other than maybe like Renekton or Mundo if you're like playing Mundo 3. But even on those units, I don't think this is like an item you love to build. So this should definitely be a positive change. I think they're adding some base HP, base AD, and then they're actually adding a little bit of Omnivamp to it. So those games where you like missed your Hodge, missed your BT, you can build this instead. And now you have like another avenue of getting some Omnivamp on your frontline units, which I think should be like a pretty positive change. And then the really big change. So the old Sterak at 60% HP, you would get like a little boost of HP, a big boost of AD. The new one, you don't get either of those anymore. Instead, you get an 80% max health shield, which is like huge. Like that is an insane shield. Like imagine like the shield that Kabuko gets right now, but it does decay over 4 seconds. So it's going to be going down pretty fast. But essentially what it does is like kind of give that little burst of survivability, like similar to Edge of Night, where the Edge of Night would drop aggro. This, you don't drop the aggro, but you have an insanely large shield where that unit is probably not going to die, at least within those 4 seconds. So it gives you a little bit more time to like kill those carries, kill those units that are like targeting whoever's holding this item, maybe heal back up using some of that Omnivamp, and actually continue doing something in the fight. So I think this will be like a pretty interesting item to build now. And I think you're also a lot happier now building it on tanks, because a lot of times you would end up with like a sword and belt at the end, and you're like, I have to build Sterak on my tank, that kind of sucks. But now that it gives that 80% health shield, it's a little bit better. Like it's still not like gonna be like the best tank item, but that's like a pretty big shield to get on your tank. And if it's like taking a lot of the aggro, then you're pretty happy with that, like more happy than you are with the current Sterak at least. So overall, I think this should be a pretty positive change. And honestly, like these stats, like it's doubling the attack damage on base and like almost doubling the health. Like these are like pretty big buffs to this item. So I think it should be like just a good item now. Moving on to Guardbreaker. I never noticed how many lines of text this item has before. Like it gives you so many different like little stats, which is really interesting to see. They're changing the name of it. I don't know if they're changing the image, but this item is the item is changing a lot. Like I think overall it's a nerf, at least in some builds for sure. So what's happening here is the attack speed is getting a little bit lower. It loses the AP completely, and it does not gain damage amp off hitting shielded targets anymore. And the thing is, like, there are a lot of shields in the game. So, I mean, there's Vanguards, obviously, but like so many units' abilities, so many frontline units' abilities just give them like some kind of shield. And that this would proc off of that. And then imagine like you have like an AoE unit that's hitting like that shield, and then like maybe like Brand like auto attacks a shield and casts his ability and like spreads that damage over the entire enemy team. And he has like that big damage amp during that cast. But now that doesn't happen anymore. Now it's that crits. So it could be, I think, an auto crit or a spell crit will grant 5% damage amp, but it can stack up to 3 times. So you can get back up to that 15%, but it takes time. And since it only lasts for a few seconds, I feel like this is going to be like a lot worse on slow attacking units, mainly like AP carries, like something like a Brand. Like he's going to auto, like his autos are pretty slow, and then by the time his spell comes out, you might not be getting like the full effect of that, like of the stacking damage amp. So you're probably going to end up getting less damage amp on these units. And yeah, you're just like not guaranteed to auto anyway, unless you have like a full crit build or like full crit like augments. So I think, yeah, this will be definitely a nerf to this item in AP comps. And maybe it might be like power neutral in AD comps, but I imagine it'll be a little bit weaker there as well. Mainly because like, you know, you're losing the attack speed, you're losing the AP, so I think overall it's a nerf, which I think is fine. Like this has been like a really good item for like a couple sets now. The only thing is, because there are so many shields in the game, it's weird now that we have this space where there's like no anti-shield items. There's no like anti-shield in the game at all. So I feel like this makes shields a little bit stronger in general. But yeah, as far as I know, they don't have any way to like address that. So this could like slow down fights a bit. But we'll see. I overall, I don't think it's going to be like a huge change. But it's definitely interesting to see that like the anti-shield mechanic, is gone from the game now. And now artifacts. So yeah, they're introducing a few new artifacts. And the very first one that I have here is the Statikk Shiv. So I mentioned this earlier, but this new artifact Statikk Shiv, it doesn't shred. All it does is it kind of retains that like bouncing effect. It has a bit more stats, so 25 AP, 20% attack speed. And it still has, the bounce, so every third attack you're still dealing damage to 4 different random enemies, but it's a lot more damage now. So it has 50 base, which is higher than the old Statikk Shiv, and it takes 50% of the AP of the unit holding it as well. So these bounces are going to be doing like a lot of damage. Like imagine this on like the current version of Twisted Fate, or like any AP user in the future who like wants attack speed. They're gonna be like throwing out like so much damage, like spreading out so much damage on the team just via this item. I think this will actually be probably really strong, especially, I mean, we'll see like if they move the numbers around, but I just think like, yeah, this is just gonna be a generally good item. I'm curious if this will even be good on attack speed units that don't care about AP, like things like Zeri, like where they're just going to be like attacking super fast and bouncing around all this extra damage in the fight anyway, that it might just be good enough to put on them. But yeah, I guess we'll see. It definitely looks like a really cool item. The next artifact is Flickerblade. So this is the item sort of taking the place of the old Guinsoo. Of course, they buffed it up a bit because they want to make it the power of an artifact. They want to make sure that it's like, you know, exciting to play. You still get that attacks grant 5% stacking attack speed of the original Guinsoo before the change, but now it also grants you that AD and AP every few attacks as well. And I think that's similar to the current Anger Issues augment, which is why I think it would be weird if they keep that and then also have this. But yeah, it seems like a really strong item. Like this is, again, like any user of the current Guinsoo that you would basically just want to throw this on, and it's a better version. They're going to be even more of a hyper carry with this because they have all of that stacking AP and AD. So yeah, I think this will just be like a cool item to have. It's just a better Guinsoo basically. And here is Indomitable Gauntlet. So this is just a placeholder. I just picked an item from the League wiki that looked like an Indomitable Gauntlet. I don't actually know what it's going to look like, but this is just a generic tank item. I don't think there's anything crazy about this one. It gives you some health, some armor, and MR. And if you remember from last set, there was that anomaly that I think was called... Oh gosh, what was it called? It was the one where your unit... Oh, Deep Roots. Where your unit just like gets... It can't move, but they like pull in units to them, and then they get like a bunch of like HP and armor and MR. And yeah, that's basically all this is. Your units get some percent max health, it gets stun immunity, and then pulls the current target into their range. So essentially what this will do is like, you know, it'll pull the enemy tanks in, and then eventually when those are dead, it'll pull the enemy backline in. It's not like a crazy effect. Like this isn't going to, I don't imagine this is going to change too many fights. It's basically just like a good generic item. Oh, also, the move speed is reduced. It's not like 0, it looks like. So your unit will technically still be able to move around. I imagine like very slowly, but they won't just be stuck in place like they were with Deep Roots. But I think this will just be a good generic tank item that you can throw on some unit if you didn't get like the carry artifact that you wanted. And then last but not least is the Titanic Hydra. So this is the, actually this might be last and least. I don't think this item is that exciting. It sort of takes the place of the Runaans, but it's more of a bruiser frontline version of it. So it has a splash, but instead of like shooting out 2 bolts to close units, it just hits adjacent enemies, which I already think is a bit of a nerf, but it scales off of max health and AD of the unit. So this is designed to be on something like with high HP, like a bruiser, maybe like a Mundo or like a Renekton or something like that, like some bruiser frontline unit. And it just gives you like a bit of bonus damage on that unit. The stats are like pretty good, like it gives a good amount of health, AD and attack speed, but I just don't think the effect is going to be very valuable. So if anybody sees you running this, generally what they'll do is just spread out their frontline, and then a lot of the time, the unit holding this is just going to be like hitting one unit. Like you are not going to be able to get that splash damage very consistently. At least in most fights, like on occasion, I'm sure it'll be like a little bonus, but it just seems like a lot of the time, this item won't be doing much other than just giving you the stats on it. And I mean, 3% HP and 25% AD is actually like a good amount. So it is just like good base stats, but I don't think you're ever like super excited to take this item. I think you'll just take it like when you don't get anything better. And you can technically put it on backline units, and it'll have like that little splash zone as well. Same thing. It's only adjacent enemies. It doesn't like spread any further. But if you do put it on a backline unit, you're kind of losing the value of that HP. So I wouldn't be super excited to do that either. And yeah, that's pretty much it. These are the big item changes coming so far in 14.5, which again is in like 2 weeks. And other than that, I think it seems like there's some other big changes coming in set 15. I guess we'll have to stay tuned to see what those end up being. And if you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. It helps a ton. Let me know if you like this type of content. This is my first time sort of doing this review of what is upcoming in TFT. It's really enjoyable for me. I like putting together these infographics, just having like more of a visual way to learn all of this new information coming into the game. And yeah, other than that, BTR out.